think at that time I made the connection that I was beating myself up because I made the connection that I really needed to lose weight. That's what I was thinking. I made that
Awesome.
connection, and then it kind of diffused, and then it came back Saturday afternoon, and I wasn't able to make that connection, so I ate too much, and then this morning, I'm just kind of just waiting until I get hungry.
Mm-hmm.
And I got all the food out of my house because I thought I was ready to be able to handle that, but I'm not. So I just had to accept that. Let go of that.
Well, and that's very true when it comes to you holding on to the way you have always thought. You'll never be able to handle food, right? So you have to really surrender your way of thinking, your perspective of life. You have to surrender how you relate to people. You can't expect to hold on to that way of being and to expect a different result, or that'll get easier. And so the clarity for you around that is what needs to happen for this shift to occur. So the good news is throughout our work together, you've had experience of relief, so you know it exists and you know it's possible. The next step for you would be to then surrender what it is that you're holding on to that translates into this extreme need for food, right?
Well, I've been in and out of the 12 steps for so long that, so you're talking about surrender. So I thought, well, I was thinking about the 12 steps, and the first step is basically surrender. So I put weight instead of food because basically I'm powerless over my weight.
Correct.
So that helped a lot until yesterday afternoon, and then I don't know what happened, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
Because it stopped me. It stopped me. That saying that to myself kind of stopped me in my tracks from my thought process going any further, which is really what I'm struggling with, because I get it, but then it's like my brain just automatically goes to my old way of thinking, and I can't stop it.
Yeah, well, that's because you're trying to just say it and thinking it'll actually take effect. It has to be real. It has to be realized, if that makes sense. I've never seen.
Well, it was real. It was still working really well. I went out, but it's just things just happen. Like, so yesterday morning I was feeling, I had a friend that called me and wanted me to go out, and normally I would just decline because I would need to be, I would need to be like abstinent for a few days so I could be clear. And I thought, well, I'm just gonna go, and I'm powerless over my weight, so I'm just gonna go and live my life. So I went out and I got there, and I was having trouble. The place had stairs, and I had trouble walking up the stairs.
And so the next step would be, I'm powerless over these stairs.
Yeah, well, that's the first thing. The other thing I was telling myself was, I have this issue with my legs. I don't know what's going on. I'm like, they just keep swelling, and I'm like, you know what? I started wearing long skirts because that hides it. And so I went to the place, and I had the skirt on, and and then she was at this place where there were kids. She had brought her grandkids, and so I walked up the thing, and I got to they said they were at the go-kart section, and I got up there, and it just wore me out just to walk all the way up there, and then I couldn't find them, so I called her, and she's like, oh, well, we came back down here to eat. So I walked back down there, and just doing that was like I was ready to go, because I couldn't do anymore, and then we had to find a seat, and then her kids were like, they were asking me for money, because they didn't have, like, any money. They had spent their money, and we were sitting there, and then after like 20 minutes, I knew I needed to get up, because if I didn't get out of the chair, my legs were going to swell even more. And it was just so uncomfortable. The whole thing was just uncomfortable. So finally, I just left, and I thought, if this is living my life, it's just everything is just It's very uncomfortable and
Yeah.
it's just uncomfortable. So I came back
Right?
home. Well, no, I went
It's
to that place. I had that
yeah.
Philly sandwich, and I ate, part of it, and then I was just so good, and I just kept eating it. And then I ate too much, and that
Yeah,
triggered
so are you
wanting
seeing
to eat more.
you
So
see the connection then to your body image issues and how bad you feel about it, and how that equates into excessive eating, which is so counterintuitive, right? Because you're sitting here feeling so victimized by your body and feeling so bad. How does it end in you doing what caused the problem? Can you see
well,
that?
that's my whole life. My whole life, I've done the opposite of what I've.
Of course,
I've
this is how you get to this size. This is how you get up towards 400, 500 pounds. And this has been our conversation this whole time. The problem is you've been brainwashed by the diet industry and the medical community to be obsessed over the outcome of your weight. But yet they don't look at how, because you're obsessed with the outcome of your weight, that it has created this extremely magnified relationship with food out of fear of being starved or fear of being, because food is so primal in terms of our wiring. You can't change your wiring around food. If we could completely counter to evolution and change evolution right now, this would be very easy for you, because your victimization around your weight and feeling bad about it would equate to you not eating. But it doesn't, does it? You feeling bad and tortured and victimized and persecuted and literally physically limited by the body is not equating into equal opposite restriction in food. The feelings that you have about how bad your body is, it's amazing how it's never when you're eating, right? And so the need for you to eat. So again, this is where a lot of people would listen to this and they're going to go, why would Robin encourage her to accept her weight? It's torturing her. It's limiting her entire life. You said yourself, I just can't imagine that this is what my life is like. Well, I hate to break it to you. This is what your life is like because of what you've been doing. So how can you continue to do the same thing if it is equating to you living in a body that you feel tortured by? It's not going to get.
I get all that, but it doesn't.
Hold on.
Help.
How do you really get it? Do you really? Because you say you get it.
I get it. I get it.
Do you really?
In the moment, I get it.
So you don't get
it. When it's reinforced, but my other brain just kicks in, and like when I went to see my friend, like she could used to not be able to walk. She had weight loss surgery, and now she's just walking around like
maybe
very easy for her. So
then maybe you should get weight loss surgery.
No, but
Nope, I'm not judging that. Maybe that's what you should do because you're wanting the physical outcome. You may need weight loss surgery because you're not doing it on your own. Again, the fixation on your weight, even if you do get weight loss surgery, this connection has to be made for you to not continue the binge cycle. You know what I'm saying? Do you agree from the heart, this is not from the mind, that your overemphasis on your opinion and really other people's opinion about your weight is what is magnifying this relationship with food?
Yeah, I think if I had people, if I didn't have to, if there was more than you out there, telling me that, helping me understand that, or helping me stay in that right frame of mind.
Yeah, you're saying something straight from codependency. You are super codependent. That's what I'm hearing. But you're right, because of the codependency.
Well, everything is wrong with me, basically. You just keep telling me everything's wrong with me. So I guess it's just possible. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
Is there
Yeah.
anything
Is
I'm
it
doing
really
right?
personal? Is it personal? Is this really personal, or
Uh,
is this really about you, or is this about what you're doing? Is this personal?
it is personal.
Well,
It's my
maybe
whole
that's your
life.
problem. Maybe that's where you're having problems. Maybe that's your sticking point, is that you're taking this so personal. You know, when I'm speaking to you, am I saying this against you? Is this really are you a victim of me now?
I'm just frustrated because I mean,
Do you know much about
every.
codependency?
So now I'm codependent.
Do you know I asked you, do you know very much about what codependency is?
Um, I've never been to Codependent Anonymous. I don't know. So,
Well, it's just a simple question of, do you know very much about codependency?
not really.
Okay, so for you to become defensive and offended by it, you might want to consider, if you don't understand what it means, you should understand what it means first before you become victimized by it. Codependency is just a way to describe how you relate and how you're relating. I don't think you really understand a different way of relating, right? So it means that you have become weakened and enabled to need others, that there is a lack of sense of your own ability because you've been over controlled by others, you've over relied on others. So the codependency is, if I were to simplify it, is when you have a relationship where the other entity, person, food, diet, really, takes more responsibility and you end up with less. And the less responsibility you have, the less sense of ability you end up having. The weaker you become and the weaker you feel. Okay? The diet industry actually thrives on codependency. They want you to rely on them to control you. And as someone becomes weaker and weaker, they want someone to control them. And so it's a very toxic environment, and it creates this neediness. And we've been talking about the victim, persecutor, rescuer triangle. That's very much part of codependency. So codependency is really just, you could say, an outcome, a very toxic outcome, when someone has been overly controlled. The person that is being controlled ends up being extremely weak and enabled to need their controller. Does that make sense? I've actually been contemplating this, listening to our sessions and rethinking around it. You're presenting a very codependent position. And what I'm doing, if you can't tell, is I do not necessarily control. The goal is that you develop your own ability. And so the process of this is not controlling, it is enabling, or it's a trying to create an ability in your own sense of what this is. Is that making sense?
I don't think I'm codependent.
Okay. So when you re-listen to this video, you're going to hear the statement that you said, where you said, I need someone, I need help, I need this. And that's very much so true. I'm not saying that's not true. I'm just saying
I need help being able to, when I get those thoughts, and when I get into situations where I don't know how to deal with them because I need to know what to do, what I'm supposed to do.
Correct.
I need to find a way to know how to keep my thoughts from going back to my old way of thinking when I run into situations that are very tempting. I don't have coping skills.
Yes, correct. Yes, I would agree with that. I would agree with everything you're saying. You're very weak in that area. Correct. So my suggestion would be, and this is what so if I were to say, okay, let's rethink this from a recovery point of view, I need to be able to have this ability. So notice how you're reaching outside of yourself to do it, right? So the goal would be that you develop the ability to do this. Otherwise, you will always have to pay someone else to help you to do it. Or you just won't ever do it. Or you won't be able to do it. So the goal in your statement, which I believe is absolutely true from where you're at, is, but what you're not seeing is that the thinking process for you is that I am powerless. I need someone else to do this. And what I'm approaching you with is, no, you're not powerless. Just observe it. Connect the dots for yourself. Notice this position right here and right here. Go into it and learn it from where you're at. Once you do that, you will notice that you are empowering yourself. You felt empowered on Friday. You felt empowered around that connection. It was intrinsic. It was yours. You were very aware, right? It was an internal decision. You stopped it. That should feel empowering. Correct?
It was. Yeah.
Okay. So the idea that you need someone else to do that, what does that do to your empowerment?
Well, it just makes me feel defeated and hopeless.
Well, it makes you feel like they have the power and you need them. You hear the codependency?
But we all need each other. I mean, that's kind of...
Hold on a second. That was a really radical statement that you just said, because that's not true. It is only true to a certain degree. So there's degrees of need, right? It's not black and white. Right?
Well, we're human beings. We all need each other. I mean,
but that's not black and white. You know, there's degrees of need, correct? It's not black and white. So it's really important you take the black and white thinking out of it. You're trying to justify what you're... You just...
I'm trying to understand what you're telling me.
Hold on.
I'm questioning it.
No, you're saying that we all need each other, and I'm saying, well, hold on a second. What we're trying to do is get you to develop your own sense of empowerment so that you are capable of helping yourself. Because in the end, you're the problem. You are the problem. You're the one who's doing this. It's a choice you're making. You are absolutely making choices. And so what is anybody else going to do to make you get to the point where you're willing to change those choices? That would be like, again, a very dysfunctional, codependent parent-child relationship. Parent-child. And so that's codependency. And so what if that is the problem? What if that's the problem? I would highly recommend that you start studying codependency. And what you'll notice is that you're going to see that you have a codependent relationship with food. You also have a codependent relationship with the diet. You have a codependent relationship with all forms of control. And so it really does leave, and I did too. This is not something to feel bad about. It's part of how you were probably raised. It's a huge part of culture. It's basically taught to you to be codependent with religion, with systems. Your parents more than likely were this way. So how are you to know any different, especially if you've been the one that's extremely enabled to be very weak? It's very common in addiction. Codependency is something you should not be afraid of. It's relevant. In fact, I just haven't used that terminology. I've been using the victim, the drama triangle. That's all codependency language. The victim positionality, those are all codependency words. And so the process for you, and this may be where you may having a block, is that when it comes to recovery, there is a personal responsibility that must be taken. Okay. And I know for me, I felt like I had no sense of ability. It didn't even exist for me. But in the end, I had to just go with my non-existent sense of ability as good enough, because that's all I actually had. And you go from there to, once you take this responsibility for it is, I have to surrender to what I'm feeling weak to. There's a surrendering to what you feel weak to, which is your weight. You feel weak to your weight. Ultimately, then, if you surrender to that, that would mean, if you fully surrender to it, that would mean that you fully surrender to the staircase. You surrender to the friends who, this is all a real surrendering. If you surrender that fully and completely, what happens to your relationship with food? What would have happened if you did not feel bad about your weight?
It wouldn't have mattered.
Right? Then you wouldn't have felt like, I'm going to go get this Philly cheesesteak.
I'm with you on the surrender part.
Okay.
I'm with you there.
Good.
I follow you there.
So
as far as I can.
Okay, so pause.
Feel that.
Good. Okay, so that's wonderful. That's wonderful. That's intrinsic. Now you're not powerless because you're seeing the connection here. That you're feeling bad about your weight, even if it's legitimate and real. It's not made up. It is difficult. It is hard. You can see that hardship is not a cause. This was created by you, right? But you never really took a step out of it enough to go, well, my relationship with food, which is causing this, is so much made worse when I feel bad about my weight. So if I really care about my weight, I should stop feeling bad about it, because this relationship I have with food is only there when I feel bad about my weight. And of course, there's other.
Wait, you said care about, so caring means loving
loving the body. If you really care about the life that the body is providing you, okay? If you really care.
Yeah.
Don't you agree? You really need to fully grasp this connection between feeling bad about your weight, victimized by your weight, shameful about your weight, judgment in any form about your weight, how that formulates and creates this very distorted and magnified need for food. Temporarily. You always think it's temporary, right? I need this food now. This is really this is complicated. This is a complicated way to see it. It's not easy. And I want you to know that give yourself the grace of it is complicated, because in the moment you just feel this weight of the body and the limitation of the body. You feel that. That's real. How did it get created? How did it get created? Right? It wasn't it if you had to tell your story, if there was one simple emotion, I
guess just complete. I remember when it started, and I didn't know how I was ever going to eat again if I had to lose weight, because I couldn't understand how I was supposed to go on a diet and eat. Or, I just couldn't make the connection of how I was supposed to not.
You weren't supposed to be eating, right? That feeling.
Or maybe it's just that I never followed the diet. Maybe it's just that I had this guilt because I never actually followed the diet that my mother or whoever put me on.
What if you never questioned the severity or the inhumane approach to the diet? You never really considered that type of deprivation is extreme.
No, I didn't, because it came from my mom.
So that might be where you're missing the link, is that and don't you agree that's so understandable? What kid doesn't want to honor their parents and to, that doesn't, don't you think that's normal and natural to believe your parents? This must be true. This is right. So that right there, you never really questioned that the extremism in the deprivation could be the cause of the problems. We've talked about this, and The connection for you, this is really important for you to be empowered to understand this to the point where anybody could have an opinion about it and you could give them the grace of they don't get this and it's complicated. But
I was listening. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I was listening to one of your other videos that popped up on my YouTube, and you were talking about, cultural whatever in our society.
Dogma.
You mentioned church, and I remember thinking, how you were a good person if you went to church, and I remember thinking, I've never ever fallen into that, those category of people that felt like they had to go to church all the time because I thought it was just bullshit, but yet the way part I completely grasp, and I know all this has to do with the relationship I had with my mother, and I hate to say that because I hate to say that all this, I thought I was over all that stuff with my mom, but I remember as a child, we lived in Ohio, and when I was 5, we moved to North Carolina, and all of a sudden we had to start going to church, and I knew my mother hated it. The only reason, I knew my mother didn't believe in all that stuff, or, and I mean, she never said it, she never had to, I just knew it, because when we were in Ohio, we never went to church, nobody ever mentioned God, and then all of a sudden, she would say, we have to go to church, and I would say, why? Because, your grandparents are going to be there, and my grandfather pretty much built church with his money, and so I just knew without ever having to really talk to her that she didn't want to go either. The only reason we were doing this was because her parents were making her, and I think at 14 I just refused to go anymore, and she let me stop going because it was but anyway, so I never fell into that part of the whole thing, but the food part,
you can see the parallel.
It was so different because of my mother's feelings about it. And
the body image part. This is amazing what you're saying. This is so good. You're connecting some parallels with that. Have you ever considered, imagine, let's use your mother as an example. She was raised by someone who was probably radically religious, right? Your grandparents may have been very radically religious to the point where she couldn't just not go to church. She had to make you go so that they were comfortable, correct? Imagine.
She changed, like her personality. As soon as we moved back, her personality changed.
Okay, so hold on.
I hated when.
Understand. I need you to listen to what my point was with this. Imagine if they told her, and they put very severe, strict religious rules. Not only do you have to go to church, but there was very strict religious rules around how she should dress. She can't drink alcohol. She can't do this. She can't do that. Imagine how she would respond, believing I have to go to church for my parents to love me, and I have to do these things I don't want to do. What would happen behind closed doors for her?
She would become the angry person that she became.
And she would probably overuse what she really wants to do in private. Do you see where I'm headed with this? So the feeling of being resented and being angry and being restricted around the stuff she really wants to do and be, when in reality, in order for her parents to approve of her, she has to become this perfect model so her parents are comfortable. So just on a side note, there are studies and observations culturally that as people are leaving this radicalized religious section of the United States, of our culture, as people are leaving religion, they are going to body image. That if I am failed there and I don't want to do that anymore, I will find my own sense of feeling good and valuable. And body image is like being sold to them. Come to us, we'll make you feel better. We'll prove that you're a better person. You'll show your parents that you're a good person by being healthy and pure and thin. So it's really quite predictable when you're saying this. I'm like, oh, she's following what the social scientists are studying right now. As people leave religion, they go into thinness and body image and fitness, and that's their form of religion. It's like they just transferred their religion. As a child of someone who did that, I'm not surprised that you ended up with a binge eating disorder. Because she probably became very religious around restricting food. And you can look at your father too and how that, how he related to it in the marriage. to where they would truly believe that for you to be happy, you need to be thinner. And they were probably putting pressure on you so that they didn't feel like failures as parents because they didn't raise you in
I didn't grow
religion.
up with my dad. I don't know where.
So this would be with your mom. So that would make sense to me. Why?
She did. My mother was she never really expressed any obsession with thinness or weight, but she did express
not with you. Not with you. She didn't put you on any.
No, but she was a type 1 diabetic. She was a diabetic when she was 14.
Got it.
So she had to restrict her diet. She had to be on a very, and she was brittle.
Got it. Ooh, so it's very strict. So question, she never put you on a diet, never made you feel bad about your weight, never said you need to lose weight, we need to put you on a restriction, never did that?
Yeah, she did to me, but I'm talking about with herself.
Okay, so that's fine. If she felt that way about you, she absolutely felt that way about herself. Did she ever have a weight problem?
Not that I know of. I couldn't understand
that's good.
about her.
Okay, that makes sense to me because she never really, she was safe in her restriction. She was safe in her body, and she felt you were unsafe in yours. She wanted you. So this to me was like, this is actually really important for you to observe, to just witness, just observe and witness. Like that would make sense. So if she was thinner and felt somewhat safe in her thinness, like at least I'm thin, at least I'm this or that. Did your
Well, what I don't understand about it, what made me so angry about it was that she was very much a feminist and a like she didn't want me to wear makeup because she didn't want me to. Well, she didn't want to support the dogma. She didn't want my worth to be based on how on how I looked. Because for her, it was my health. She was worried about my health. And, But she would say, she never wanted me, my self-worth to be based on, what men thought of me. And she didn't want me to wear makeup, and she didn't want me to wear, like, clothes that were too revealing because she wanted me to, she made it seem like she wanted women to be empowered and have these great careers and all this other crap. But yet, she hated me because I didn't look a certain way. So I always felt like she was a hypocrite. That's always felt.
Yeah, she didn't see that. It's like she transferred her religion. She became anti. Anti is no different, right? It's like the alt-right versus the extreme left. They're the same. Same psychology. They're the same. They just have different rules, right? So yeah, she's no different than radical, zealotry on the other side. So you're correct when you see that. She just didn't. She didn't see it, right? This is what you said, I think, is actually really relevant when you say it was about my health. I talk about this quite a bit, that the idea of thinness for people can be clouded by the illusion that it means you're healthier. And so it's really common, and this is where the orthorexic nature of our culture comes into play. Have you heard about, orthorexia?
Is that where?
Go ahead.
Is that where you think eating healthy food will make you
pure?
Like your diet is your medicine.
Yes.
That's what I believe. After I got into FA and I lost the weight and I felt in my I just felt so good. I believe that. I believe the diet was medicine. And I still do. I mean, it's hard not to.
Oh my God! When you're as large as you are and have such negative impact, but you're not seeing yet, right? That the feeling bad about it. How is feeling bad about your food affecting you? Do you think that people who feel bad about what they're eating, is that healthy?
No.
I know.
Well, no, but
I know. So this is the downside that you're not seeing in your own hypocrisy, right? It's really important for you to open your mind to just observe all of this and go, oh, I never ever thought that in that is hypocrisy, that I've just transferred it from this to that. It's the same thing, this or that. and the willingness to go into the unattached from the object you're symbolizing, right? The feeling bad, whether it's bad about yourself in religion, okay, feeling bad about yourself with your fatness, even remove that, feeling bad about yourself in your disease or unhealth, feeling bad about the food, that badness that you're feeling, what if that's the problem, is when you feel bad? Feeling bad. That feeling, you know that feeling that I'm talking about, don't you?
Yeah.
So if what you believe in, even if it's so innocent, the belief, if you feel bad, is that something you should continue to hold on to if that badness is what creates your compensation that is causing all these problems? Right?
But it's just just so, it's like,
are you connecting
how
those
do you not
dots?
feel? No, I'm not.
Okay,
Like, for
that's
example,
that's fine.
Can I just give you just an example?
Sure.
Like, so I found out I had fibroids last week or the week before. So I look at treatment for fibroids, and it talks about surgery, and then it talks about curing your fibroids with diet because of the estrogen and progesterone imbalance.
Yeah, how does that make you feel?
That makes me feel bad because I created this. I created the fibroids by not eating correctly.
Okay, so now what happens to your food intake when you feel that?
Oh, this is so complicated.
It's really not. Just stay with where I'm at. It's not complicated. Your way of thinking about it is complicating it. I am simplifying this for you. Just stay in the simple space of what I'm actually asking you. Just stay literally in the mind of what I'm trying to do with you. I'm just saying, what happens when you feel bad about it? What happened to your food intake when you felt bad about the need for you to change your diet?
I ate some popcorn with butter.
Okay, just keep it simple, because that's really all I'm doing is simplifying for you, and you're complicating it. Why is it so complicated when this is so simple? When you feel bad, what happens to your food intake?
It goes up.
So in terms of what...
That's what I'm trying to say.
So simple.
I try to surrender, and then something like this happens.
And then you feel bad.
And I take it back. And I take it back.
And then you feel bad.
I take the surrender back.
So pause.
I don't think that's codependency.
It
I just think that's me trying.
So it's important for you, if you're going to recover, first of all, to not feel bad about codependency. I don't think it's something you should feel bad about. It's actually an incredible, it's like really important. It's not a judgment. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It's just, it should help you make sense of why there's so much need. Right? The needy part of it. It's really important that you have the humility to surrender to, like, not feeling bad about this. Don't feel bad. So let's go back to the simplicity of this. Feeling bad. When you feel bad, what happens to your food intake? I eat stuff
that I wouldn't dream of eating.
And it's not just something. It's a lot of it. So back up from there. So the bad feelings ultimately are, if you are to heal the body, if the body is going to be given the space to heal itself, are you aware that if you remove yourself, that the body could easily fix itself? Are you there yet?
Yeah, I get that.
Okay, pause. Just keep it simple. Just stay with me. Like, I need you to really keep your clear thoughts. Just keep your mind as wide as you can as I take you through the simplicity of this. Okay? When you feel bad, what happens to your food intake?
It goes up.
And it goes up. It's like massive. It's not just I have a little snack. It's big. correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, and what happens to your food, your body? What happens to your body because of that?
It gets thicker and thicker.
And bigger and bigger. And now you are words around 400 plus pounds, 420, and it's going to get bigger and bigger the more bad you feel, correct?
Yeah.
Isn't that what has happened? Is that not the
same?
Right? Is that not the witness of what you've been living for a long time now? Essentially, that is the foundation of this equation. I feel bad. The first thing I do is eat. And I eat in this. Would you agree that the amount of bad you feel is about the amount of food you're eating?
Yeah.
Okay, simple. Is that so simple?
Yeah.
So then from there you can say, well, there's a lot of things that make me feel bad. The doctor's opinion. I mean, if you were to say in terms of like dieting, don't all diets ultimately make you feel bad? It doesn't even matter if they're like therapeutic and simple and they're not even that big of a deal, right? It doesn't matter. It all kind of makes you feel bad. Something as simple as I've had fibroids. Here's a simple diet that might, it's never proven, that might, diminish the cause of what's going on. It's all. So go there. It's simple. You read a diet around fibroids, right? How did that make you feel the moment you read it?
Like I created the fibroids because I can't control my eating.
So just describe the feeling. Don't make it complicated. How did it make you feel? Did you feel bad?
At first, I felt better because it was a non-surgical option. And then,
as soon as someone says you need to restrict your food, how does it make you feel? It doesn't matter why. How does it make you feel? As soon as someone says we're going to restrict your food, how does it make you feel?
I feel a lot of pressure.
And then how does that make you feel?
I feel like I need to eat so that tomorrow I can start eating the way I'm supposed to.
Okay, so all of that comes from feeling how about your body? When you feel bad, what happens to your food consumption?
It goes up.
And it goes up massively. It goes up equal to your badness. You eat is equal to how bad you feel. Which ultimately, don't you agree, there is, in terms of the pressure to restrict, it's not just how bad you feel. Oftentimes it is logic. It's like, oh, I have to restrict those foods. I will eat those foods now before I restrict them. So there's logic in that decision. Yeah. So when we talk about your need to lose weight, your need, not my need, I'm not suggesting it. I think your body could do this on its own. It doesn't need you. It doesn't need that diet. It doesn't need it. All you got to do is remove yourself. Don't you agree? Right? We talked about that. If we could put you in a coma, what would happen?
I get so panicked because I think I'm going to kill myself before I recover. And my mind goes to this point, well, if I could just do this healing diet to fix all my organs for 6 months, then I could go back to, trusting my body. And that's where I go. I can't stop it.
So then what happens?
I'm just afraid.
That's fine. So what happens to your food intake once you do that? Once you go there, what happens to your food intake?
I end up binging.
So, can you afford to feel bad about your weight anymore? Just connect those dots. It is so easy. It is actually so simple. Once it's clear, the problem is it's just not clear to you because you continue to go back to the feeling bad about your weight. Every time you feel bad about your weight, it's amazing, right? It's so like.
It's not clear because what happens is It's not clear because I don't have the evidence yet.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. That's amazing to me that you just said that. It's amazing to me that you just said that. You've had plenty of evidence. Over the course of a month, your binging is significantly down and your weight went down significantly in a very short period of time. But yet you don't have evidence of that. Even though you have evidence of it. You didn't even, right? So it's really important that you really question your mind in terms of what type of evidence are you looking for? What do you need to have evidence? What is it that you have to, I need evidence. Well, the weight loss and the lack of binging wasn't enough for me.
Because it was followed by such a big binge.
But is it because, but hold on, again, this goes back to, is it what you experienced in terms of the release from having to feel bad and how that impacted your lack of binging? Or is it you going back to feeling bad about your weight that's the problem? There's so much evidence in the fact that when you remove the stress about your weight, what happened to your binging? When you removed the stress and badness about your weight, what happened to your binging?
It got less.
Isn't that evidence? Why isn't that evidence? When you felt bad about your weight, when that badness came back, what happened to your binging?
It goes up.
Is that not evidence? Observe it. Do you not see the evidence? It's right in front of your face. You have clear evidence. It's clear.
So I have to stop feeling bad about. I have to stop feeling bad about. Feeling bad about. Even if I overeat, I can't judge myself for it.
Well, think about that for a second. When you have overeaten and you chose to not feel bad about it, what happened? We have lots of recordings for you to go back and listen to. You want me to tell you what happened?
I'll go back and listen to them.
You have a lot. Would you like me to just tell you what happened? You didn't binge.
Yeah. Okay.
You ate the half a cake. You never finished the whole cake. Before you would have finished the whole cake, and it would have continued all day.
Yeah, because I decided that I was just gonna be fat.
And you didn't feel bad about it. So the real thing is you did not feel bad. You didn't feel bad. So I think that's what needs to be clear for you, is like when I don't feel bad about it and I surrender my weight to God, this is God's body. It's not mine anymore. I am going to surrender myself. I'm going to surrender my expectations. If my life is to be in a wheelchair, I surrender to God. It's no longer my burden. I am going to surrender this burden to God. People judge it. I surrender their judgment to God. It is not mine anymore. It is God's judgment. They will judge God. They judge his body. I am done being the God of this body. I can't do it anymore, because as soon as I get involved, I feel so bad. And what happens when you feel bad about your weight, about your breathing, about your fibroids? And are they yours, or is this the body's? Like, when you feel bad about the fibroids, what happens to your relationship with food? What does your evidence show you? When you feel bad about your weight, what is the evidence that your monitoring is showing you? What happens?
That I binge.
There's your evidence right there. Do you see the evidence? It's clear as day. As soon as I feel bad, I binge.
As I feel bad, I binge.
Feel bad. And it's not just in one way. You can see every angle of badness. It's from a variety of angles. It's not just one angle. It's feeling bad about health, feeling bad about your life, feeling bad about your mom, feeling bad about everything. Anything that makes you feel bad, you have connected. I will feed myself and the badness will go away. But actually, when you feed yourself, what happens to your feeling of bad? I feel
I guess the two big blocks for me is if I could just, it's not only surrendering, it's surrendering feeling bad about my health issues. That's a big thing that's a big thing because that's, when I can't, and my leg, the reason I can't walk up the stairs is because my right leg is weak because of a herniated disc
in your back
issue in my back. And
so do you surrender that? You'd have to surrender that as well to God. You have to surrender this whole thing. To surrender everything.
And then it goes to, in order to strengthen all those muscles, the best form of exercise for me is water aerobics, which I can't do because I have a fibroid on my cervix. So there's always this chance that I'm going to leak regardless of what,
So what if
I use.
Why don't you surrender? Can you surrender that to God? Can you surrender that to God?
I'm trying.
Hold on.
I get scared and I take it back.
So then the fear has to be surrendered to God. Because what happens when you get scared? What happens to your food intake when you're scared?
I end up binging because I want to control
evidence.
My weight.
Oh my God. There's evidence for you right there. This is all evidence. When I have fear, I end up binging. And then I feel even worse. And then I end up binging. And then I feel bad. And then I binge. And all the badness goes into how much food I binge on. And then I have fear and I feel bad and I binge. And wouldn't you agree? Isn't that how you got to this physical state? Wouldn't you agree? That's how I got here. That's how I've gotten to be this big.
Yeah.
So that path is evidence for you. So, and what I'm saying is, when you stop feeling bad, when you surrender this to God, it is forgivable. You had no idea that's what caused this, did you? You were so stuck in it, so close that you couldn't see the whole picture. Correct? You couldn't see the evidence.
I get that.
Yes. So as you're getting clarity, as we start looking at this from a distance, you can see the evidence has been there. You just didn't see it. So it's so forgivable. You didn't know that the more you felt bad about your weight, the worse your food behavior got. And I want you to know that every single person I work with, every single one, has the same thing. The more someone feels bad about their weight, the worse the binging gets. The more bad they feel about their weight, the more restriction they think they need to have, and the more food they eat. And it's amazing because you get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And so then you're like, I really have problems, but you've got to pull back and you got to see it to go, my weight is as problematic as it is because of how bad I have felt about my weight. I can't feel bad about it anymore, because if I continue to feel bad about it, I will die. I will have these problems. Because feeling bad, so this whole time our discussions have been around separating yourself from it. Just separate yourself from the situation. Because as soon as it's about you, how do you feel about it?
I feel bad.
And then what happens to your food consumption?
It goes up.
And then what happens to your weight that you feel bad about? So if you surrender this whole thing to God, and we're talking about every aspect of it, you say, I am surrendering my weight to God. How does that feel for you?
Feels relief. I get relief.
And then when you feel relief, what happens to your relationship with food? What happens to food when you feel relief from that pressure and badness?
It doesn't call to me.
You have that evidence. You feel that, right? Don't you? I didn't tell you to say that. I asked the question, but you felt that. So do you not have evidence? Are you not claiming that as evidence? Are you not getting this message from God? Just a thought. Give it to God. What happens for you? And you know what? You give it to God for it to resolve. It's not your body. It's not your weight loss. So if you go to the doctor next time after you have surrendered your weight to God, it is no longer my badness. It is no longer I surrender it to God, and I am surrendering this in the outcome to God. And when you surrender, what that really means is that you accept what you're afraid of. You accept this body. You're accepting that it is tiring, that you need a break, that you need to get a massage, that you need to take a breath, that you accept it all. If you judge it and feel bad about it, did you surrender it?
No.
Mm-mm. Maybe that's what you're learning is, what does it really mean to surrender? What does it really mean when they say you surrendered it to God? Does it mean that you get to be upset when things don't turn out the way you want them to? Is that surrendering?
No.
Mm-mm. So when I say you need to surrender, it's not food to fucking God. That's not your problem. You need to surrender your weight, because as soon as you surrender your weight, your size, your discomfort, your pain, your everything to God, what happens to how you relate to food?
That's so weird. Just when I felt that, I felt in my legs. I felt like a increase in blood flow. That's so weird. Isn't that weird? That's
No.
amazing.
To me, it's like, well, of course, because you're stressed out about it, you have anxiety about it, you're going to cause a heart attack, and it's not going to be because you're fat. It's going to be because you're so survived in this, and it's not your survival to worry about anymore. Let the body, if you believe in God, let's just continue this conversation, because if you believe that you are created from God, don't you agree He created this mechanism of fat gain? It's not the devil that created fat gain, it's God. That if the body loses weight, which it has, when you stayed away from this, what happened to your weight?
It went down.
Oh, there's more evidence. So if you surrender your weight loss to God, it's not your business anymore. Say that again?
I'm sorry. I said you're such a smart ass.
Well, it's important, because you go into these ego modes and you block all the information I'm giving you. It's like where are you going to go if you do that? So look at your evidence. Look at it. Can you afford to feel bad about your weight anymore and to put it in your hands? Your hands. Can you afford to say, I'm going to fix my weight? How did that statement feel right there? I'm going to fix my weight. How does that feel?
Like I have a lot of work to do.
And then how does that feel?
Like I'm just spinning around in a circle.
And then what happens to your feelings about food?
Well, that I have to control it.
And then what happens to your behavior with food?
It'll go up.
Yes.
I'll start eating.
Oh, yeah, which is amazing, because it starts with, I need to fix my weight. And then what do you end up doing?
Binging.
And then what happens to your weight?
It goes up.
Yes. Do you see how that happens? So when you come to me and I say you have to surrender, you have to accept your weight, you have to separate yourself from it, what does the evidence tell you?
The only way it's going to get better is if I surrender it all.
All of it. Not just parts of it. Every single ounce of everything.
Even when I have pain, even when I go out in public and I can't sit in a chair for long,
Yep.
Even when my legs go.
What about when your body loses weight?
That's the hard part. Even
Okay.
when I start feeling better.
That is God's. It is surrendering to God. That has to be surrendered too. That it is all God's. It is not mine. As soon as you make it personal and you make it about you, what happens?
Starts all over.
Yeah. So maybe what you're learning, and this is so empowering for you to be a witness of this. Don't you agree? This is empowering you to witness this.
Yeah.
That's why I do it this way. Is because you need the empowerment. You need the witness of this. It's yours. So you are the one that has to surrender this to God. I can't make you do it. I can't tell you exactly how to do it. You just have to do it as it occurs all the time. Things will come up that go, ah! And you got to be able to say, and this is where I would go eat. This is when I start feeling bad. I'm not going to do it anymore. I surrender it as it shows up. Right? Which includes all of it. Every ounce of it. It's all the badness and all the idea of goodness. It is all God's. It is not yours anymore. None of it. Not the best, not the good, not the feeling better. That's God's. He's the witness of this. He's the creator of this. It is no longer my problem. It is no longer my benefit. I am just going to let it be its own thing. And I am free from the badness and the pressure of it all. All of it. It is not my business. None of it is. So if none of it is your business, what happens to your relationship with food?
It becomes less and more important.
Isn't that what you wanted in the end? Is that not what gives you freedom in the end? You personally. If food is no longer important, what happens for you? Isn't that your payoff? Isn't that your benefit?
Well, it doesn't matter because it's not mine to judge either way.
You get relief. You do get a payoff from doing this. It is relief from that. I have a client right now. I would recommend that you re-listen to this session as many times as you can. And I would recommend you re-listen to everyone that I have recorded with you. With this frame of thought. That it is the badness, the clarity around the badness, that is the problem. And right? And then when you feel better about your weight, when you take it personal, when it becomes about you, right? You can say, well, then the badness comes in. But if I give this to God, all of it, there is no good or bad in it anymore. There's nothingness in it anymore. It is not my business. And now I relate to food in a more natural way, which gives you freedom. That's your payoff. Don't you agree that your payoff is that you are no longer obsessed about food? Because that ultimately is where you get the payoff. The body is God's. The fat is God's, the weight loss is God's, the health, the not health, everything is completely encapsulated, and you are handing it to God. You surrender to God and you forgive yourself. This is above and beyond my ability. I am powerless to this body. It is no longer mine. No mine to feel bad about, to worry about. If you worry about your weight, did you surrender it to God?
No.
This is where faith comes in. This is where total and complete surrender occurs. Once you do that with your weight, with your health, with your life, you are now set free from having this terribly toxic relationship with food. Are you connecting with that?
Yeah, I'm trying.
Well, just allow it to feel. You can feel it. You feel it. It doesn't come from a try in the mind. You should feel it. If you surrender the pressure of being thinner to God, What happens to your relationship with food?
It becomes more normalized.
Well, would you
Normal.
say that in terms of feel, it feels more relaxed? It relaxes.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't feel the need to eat a bunch of stuff.
It relaxes. That should feel relaxing. Like I feel relaxed around it. Isn't that recovery right there?
Yeah.
That split second of feeling relaxed is recovery. And you should feel like that is where we want you to be. That's where I've been trying to show you. So, okay, I'm going to stop recording.